deep down into your body, you start to realize, wow, I still equate intimacy with threat and danger. Your emotional body is not going to take you into a relationship that is fully intimate if you still equate intimacy with danger, and that is still the main emotional signature that is within you. My assignment, it is to learn how to be with the exposure. It is that practice. It's like, can I be with the exposure? Can I actually be with when the fear emerges, can I stay in my body? Your capacity to say yes to all these fears and to be like, yeah, I may experience all of this, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It fuels your capacity to be with the desires that you actually want. It fuels your capacity to embody what you actually crave.
Just imagine the amount of freedom you would have when you're in that position, and your ability to just get out of your comfort zone and just put yourself out there, and you would attract so many opportunities. Of course, you're going to fail, but you'd be okay with failing. That is ultimate freedom.
Hello and welcome. I'm Celine Chenoy, and this is the Dreamcatcher Podcast, a space for thoughtful, unhurried conversations about how we live and what truly matters. I'm really glad you're here.
Have you ever felt stuck in the same patterns, even when you know better? Well, in today's episode, my guest Xavier Dagba joins us to talk about the shadow side of who we are, including our old emotional wounds, the parts we judge as unlovable, and what he calls the golden shadow, our hidden gifts and brightness. Xavier Dagba is a transformational coach, speaker, and author known for his grounded approach to shadow integration and self-liberation. Drawing from the depth psychology, trauma-informed healing, and spiritual wisdom, he helps people dissolve self-sabotage, release emotional blocks, and embody their brilliance with integrity. He is the creator of the Embodied Light Project and host of the Unheartened podcast. During our conversation, Xavier and I will talk about resistance, self-sabotage, and why change can feel so hard. By the end of this episode, you'll learn how to spot your shadow, work with it, and start living in a more whole, grounded way. Xavier, it's wonderful to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. And I am curious and excited about where our conversation goes.
Yeah, me too. I've obviously done some research on you, and it's clear that your work has been a guiding light for so many people who are trying to really meet themselves honestly and in a real authentic way. And your new book titled Scars of Gold, love the title. It carries such a powerful message that our wounds can actually become places of wisdom and strength. And I found that really, really compelling. So I'd love to start talking about that idea by asking you, what does Scars of Gold mean to you personally? Because I imagine that it isn't just something that's poetic and it's deeply personal to you. So why don't you tell us about your own healing journey that brought this philosophy to life?
Yeah. I mean, the book started with an idea back in, I think the first time I wanted to write a book, it was back in 2019 where the idea came up. And the idea that I had back then was, I wish I failed them sooner. The title wasn't meant to be Scars of Gold yet. But the first idea was, I wish I failed them sooner because, back in 2013, there was, I came to Canada to do a PhD in economics, which I never finished. I decided to drop out in 2014, late 2014. And when you come from an African family where they value education, where they value, it's basically like education was our salvation. I didn't come from a very wealthy family at all, and they did the very best they could to support us. And I was able to get that full paid scholarship to go study abroad. To them it looks like the golden opportunity. And now here I am, after many spiritual, you might say awakenings. I'm like, I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I feel depressed every time I'm going to the university. It never used to happen to me. It's like I am meant to do something else and I don't know yet what that is. So I drop out. And, it was just a big fracture without going into too many details. But it created this big rift within the family because I decided to drop out without even letting them know. They found out, I think it was a year after, that I wasn't going to university anymore. I was completely doing something else. And of course, they felt disappointed. They felt betrayed. I felt let down to a certain degree and unsupported in my new choice. And it made sense. All that kind of like riff and feeling alienated, feeling, you're in a different country by yourself. You're like, holy shit, I'm 25. What am I going to do right now? I decided to drop out. So it's like, what do I do with my life? And you begin this journey of not just looking for what the new path is, but at the same time dealing with the pain of humiliation, alienation, humiliation, because many people that, when I graduated the master's degree, I was top of my class in my master's. I got the, scholarship. My first year in the PhD, I had perfect grades, It didn't make sense to people that I would like drop out. But they were like, this guy must be crazy. I looked like a fool to many people. And learning how to deal with the loss as well, the loss of status, the loss of respect of people that, I was seen as a role model to many people behind me. I was like a tutor at university, kind of like helping the first years with their tutoring and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, I'm just this nut job. So, yeah. But the whole thing is allowing myself to go through that and to learn how to be with that kind of pain, which was a little new to me, that kind of like massive alienation of like, bro, you're gone crazy here. We don't know what is happening with you, but something is wrong. Going through that whole process, that got me to arrive at the first title that I had in 2019. I wish I failed them sooner, because in 2019 I felt like it was kind of a return to a sense of self, that wasn't anchored on performing for anybody. It wasn't based on like, trying to prove somebody wrong or trying to prove myself right or trying to prove my worth. He was just like, okay, this is the path I'm on. And and I feel a degree of peace within me that I've just dreamed of, and I'm okay with where I am. It's like almost a sense of serenity. And that's where the initial title came from. I wish I failed them sooner. And then it evolved, it evolved. And I think at some point it became the dark night of the ego, because I went through a phase of that, of like, okay, I feel like something inside of me is dying, but it's not my soul. I'm not a big fan of the phrase dark night of the soul, because to me, the soul is like this aspect of our divinity that, it's so close to God that it doesn't really know a dark night. So the concept of dark night of the soul never really sat right, just semantically. But dark night of the ego made sense to me because, oh yeah, I've had to shed so many identities. So, and then after that, I was like, no, the dark night of the ego is just a part of the journey, And then what is that kind of like metaphorical arrival? It is to get to this place where the wound has turned into a scar of gold. And scar of gold, of course, it is inspired by the Kintsugi Japanese tradition where they fix broken vases with gold. So yeah, the analogy comes from that. But also to me, there was this phrase that Rumi, that is attributed to Rumi. It's like the wound is where the light enters you.
I just posted that on Instagram.
I love
Funny.
that. And
Yeah,
to
I love
me,
it too. Yeah.
The scar of gold is what
Yeah.
forms on your
Hmm.
heart when the
Yeah.
light is done entering you,
Yes.
you know. And that's where it came. That's just how I came to that title. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's how the book was born.
Oh, thank you for sharing that beautiful journey that you went on of your spiritual unfoldment and your self-realization. It's so inspiring. And I have to say, I understand the amount of courage and conviction it requires for you to just do your own thing and go against social expectations. I'm from a South Asian family, and we too have a
Mm,
lot of pressure when it comes to education and the paths that we choose to take in our lives. We're supposed to follow a certain traditional script, a lot of us.
yeah.
And even if it's not explicit, it's kind of there like beneath the surface. So I know that it takes a lot of bravery to just be like, hey, I'm gonna go my own way, and this does not, and this whole, college thing does not work for me. For someone who is in a similar situation, it doesn't necessarily have to be like they want to leave college, or maybe they just want to leave a job or a relationship where they feel like this does not feel in integrity with the truth of who I am.
Hmm.
What would you say to them? Like, what was it that pushed you that could also be a sort of catalyst for their growth?
Yeah. There is this feeling of I would say, now when I look back, it felt a lot like bravery, but in the moment, honestly, it felt like a little bit of madness. It felt like I thought I was crazy, and I was okay with that. But in the moment, I was just like, my friend, like it took me more than a year to pull the plug, and that was one of the hardest years ever. And what we don't see is within that time, there is an argument that is going on internally between the part of you that knows you're invited somewhere else and the part of you that is attached to an older version of safety. And, it's like safety that means conforming, safety that means staying, you know, following the social script.
Yeah.
So I stayed in that tug of war for so long that I went into a mini depression. The year 2014 was a year of like a weird mini depression where I was just like in that argument where part of you is saying, this is not like, I am not happy here. It's not where I'm supposed to be. And another
Hmm.
part of me is like, I don't know. I don't know what is happening on the other side. So I would say when somebody is in that position, it is so important to learn how to microdose, you know, what is on the other side of the societal script. I'm going to take an example. I was so interested in 2014 in wanting to like I wasn't even clear about what I wanted to do, but I would see the things that would inspire me, that I was attracted to, and I decided to just immerse myself into it. And to, I wasn't out of the PhD yet. I was still in there, but I just decided to begin to immerse myself into it a little bit. And every time I would do that, you have these moments where, oh, it actually feels good. Let's say I took a training here by, let's say, Brendan Bouchard, or another course here that felt like, oh, this feels good. This is actually like close to what I would love to be doing, and all these different things. You feel that sense of expansion. And as soon as I would go back home, you'd have the crippling contraction that happens. And usually, what we do, we try to just suppress the contraction. But one of the practices that I would suggest to people is practice how to stay with the contraction and to stay in the body and to meet the part of you that is scared and to reparent the part of you that is scared, the part of you that has internalized that for me success only means I gotta get that PhD. I gotta go back to the United Nations where I already have like some semblance of like there was a path there for me. I had done an internship there, great relationships with people. I was like, okay, and then I needed to talk to that part of me. It's like there is more. There is more to life than this. This feels scary, and I'm going to be with the fear. But there is more to it. The practice of staying with an open heart with the part of you that is scared while you are exposing yourself to the things where to the direction where you would like to go is so important, because you are teaching to the part of you that is afraid, I know how to hold you. I know how to be with you. That's so important. I know how to hold you. I know how to be with you. And be with that somatically, where the fears emerge and you can be in your body. You can be, I think one of our biggest fears is we're afraid of being afraid. And because of that, we get stuck.
Yeah.
Like, about being afraid of being afraid is fear comes with being human.
Yes.
We idolize this kind of like idea of fearlessness or ultimate like courage, where we are not dealing with fear at all.
Yeah.
But what happens is we are so unskilled at feeling fear. What do I mean by that? It is, you are good at feeling an emotion when you are able to be with the emotion and to stay in your body and to stay open-hearted. When it comes to fear, we don't know how to do that. It's normal. We are wired to kind of like, no, as soon as something is scary, we turn the other way, we try to get away from it. But there are some fears that are master teachers. When I take the example of the fear I was feeling, which is alienation, I had to make peace with being an alien to my family for a while. I had to make peace with being an outcast. If I continued to be so afraid of being an outcast, I would have never, been on this path today. I had to make peace with being an outcast. It's like I had to tell myself, it is safe for me that mom is mad at me, that dad is mad at me. It is safe for me that, we don't want to talk to each other right now. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But
the sky is not going to fall.
Safe.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have to allow myself to go through that. So if anybody is in this situation, the fear that you're going through right now is the initiation, meaning you have to be able to be with the fear without abandoning yourself. And when you do that, you reclaim a lot of spiritual stamina, capacity to make new choices without letting that fear shut you down. So, yeah.
Yeah. So staying with that fear and kind of embracing it, and at the same time following your curiosity and trying new things and just kind of tinkering with those things that you say, hey, there's something there, there's a little spark, I want to see where that takes me. So it's just, you need both of them, right, to get out of that rut that you're finding yourself in. I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. You speak so beautifully about the shadow, obviously, and you say that it's not something we should get rid of. As you just talked about fear. It's a similar kind of approach, something that we need to integrate. But you also introduce this idea of the golden shadow, which you describe as the brightness and potential that we hide from ourselves. Could you share how these two sides, the dark and the golden, can sort of dance together in this whole process of wholeness?
Yeah. I like that question. The shadow itself, I consider it the entire storehouse of everything that we haven't allowed ourselves to see, to reclaim, to have a healthy relationship with, everything that we hide in the dark. And within that, there's also the gifts, the light that we repress because we've been conditioned to see it as unsafe. So that light, that golden shadow, lives within the shadow. And there's a beautiful dance between both. When I take the example of the thought of being a writer was never really one that was at the forefront of my psyche. So when the first thought of writing a book in 2019 came up, I was like, I'm not a writer. I'm going to make a fool of myself and all of that. The imposter voice came up. So the writer, quote unquote, in me lived in the shadow, so it wasn't a trait of the golden shadow, because I didn't see myself as a rider. And if you pay attention to the rider being the gold and my fears being the dirt, like the fear of like being humiliated, the fear of making a fool of myself, the fear of like, I don't know, writing something and then I get ridiculed for what I have written in the book. All of these fears that were also living in the shadow, they basically surround the gold. They surround, you know, the traits, the light that you've learned to dismiss. And I always go back to this story. It was about around poetry when I was younger. I'm not sure exactly what age, but I was reading poetry. We had a little writing exercise, and I read the poetry that I had written. It was in high school, and a girl I had a crush on just laughed a little bit when I was reading my poem, you know, and it just crushed me. You know, as the young boy that I was like, I never wrote, I never read anything out, you know, to people back then. So to me, that, for example, is an imprint that I had to work with when I started the process of writing. So the golden shadow is the light we've been conditioned to see as inadequate.
Yeah.
You know, and we all have memories or like, you know, instances of like expressing something that is important to us, bright, maybe in our childhood, maybe it was your art, your passion, and somebody you cared about didn't see it or dismissed it or told you, okay, you got to stop that. You know, there is no future in this thing that you're trying to do. And I would say one of the biggest journeys of individuation, which is becoming who you came here to be. Carl Jung describes individuation as, you know, basically expressing the blueprint of your soul. I think expressing your golden shadow is one of the highest forms of individuation because it is so intimate. You know, the light within ourselves is more intimate than our naked body.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What does it feel like when you get glimpses of the golden shadow?
Many things, actually. Usually, people get glimpses of the golden shadow through other people. Because the golden shadow is in the shadow, sometimes we have a hard time seeing it within ourselves. So we start seeing it through other people we admire. You know, let's say when you see somebody, you admire something in them. It is really your golden shadow saying, hey, see me through this mirror. When you look at somebody and you envy something that they have. Some people like, you know, being in denial of their own envy, but sometimes we experience envy. You see somebody, you kind of like envy the way they are showing up, the way, like how they feel so empowered to just like, I don't know, fill the room with their presence, their energy, and like their charisma. You're like, holy shit, what is that about this person? How did they get to do that? And there's this feeling of envy. It is usually
a sign.
Some of the glimpses, it's a sign. It's like, okay, look
like
within. You have.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I remember like I was a fan of Oprah Winfrey since I was 15. And then that was in the 90s and I used to watch her show. And at that time she was interviewing people like Dr. Wayne Dyer, Cheryl Richardson, Gary Zukav. And I was like absolutely mesmerized. And I was like, wow, you know, she gets to talk to all these smart people and she has such a big platform and a huge network. She can talk to anybody. And I was like, wow, that would be nice to have that kind of reach someday. And at that time, obviously, we were nowhere close to having, you know, podcasting. And, you know, that time it was just good old radio and, you know, TV. All of that felt like such a far-fetched dream, but it did stay with me. And I didn't realize until later when I was able to recontextualize it that, oh, okay, I like the fact that she was having these conversations with smart people and people from all backgrounds, really. So, and so that's when I kind of saw a bit of my golden shadow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's the case for many others. Yeah.
Oh, yes. And usually people do not necessarily see it for what it is.
Yes.
Usually they just put somebody on a pedestal. They say, oh, they get to have that. I don't.
Yeah.
And we have all the rationalizations that come up as to no, why this person gets to do that and you can't, and all of these different things, which are all the stories we've learned to tell ourselves to actually repress our own brightness and our light.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do we do in that case, Xavier? Because we get conditioned to believe like, hey, that's not for you, or we go for things that seem safe, like a safe job, a safe career, a safe major in college. How do we navigate that when we feel like we're somehow repressing and sort of dimming our light?
The first thing that I invite people to do is actually to make a list of all these people that they admire slash envy. In radical honesty, just make a list of them. As soon as they have this awareness, okay, true, that through the people they admire or through the people that they envy, and some spiritual seekers are usually trying to say, no, 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 I don't envy anybody. I'm just like, really? We are all humans. Sometimes you happen to see something that you envy. It is okay. Allow yourself to see that. And instead of shaming yourself for it, recognize that you are seeing a desire that you have deemed only accessible to some people, and you are frustrated that you don't feel worthy of that desire. So first,
Yeah.
look at the two mirrors and honor them fully. And actually go through the journey of putting down at least 5 people that you really deeply admire. It could be people that are past or alive. It could even be characters in a movie.
Yeah. That's a
Especially
good idea. Like archetypes.
Oh yeah. Archetypes. It could be archetypes, characters in a movie. They can be past this, they can be dead already. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But something is inside of you felt something about the character, and it was like that there's something in there. Look at that. So write the list and then ask yourself, what is it about this? What are traits about this person or that person that I really admire? When it comes to envy, it could be, what is a trait about that character that really throws me off? I'm going to take an example there. Envy, for example, some people, especially, I'm going to take my example to make it clear and not to generalize. I used to be triggered. I come from a place that was, very underserved, in Africa, not really wealthy at all, actually very
Cameroon,
poor.
right?
Cameroon, yeah. But the area of Cameroon where I grew up, it wasn't a wealthy area at all. So when I would see people either having a lot of money, but especially to me, what felt like wasting the resource, to me, it felt like, when I would see them, it felt like they were wasting the resources. I would get triggered.
Wow.
And I'd be like, but in that, there was actually envy. And what was going on, what was happening was the story I was telling myself. If I had that money, I wouldn't do this with that resource. So within that, there's a premise. If I had that money, meaning,
Yeah.
oh, I actually want it, but I don't believe that it's accessible to me. And then I had to disrupt that to first own that,
Yeah.
okay, I desire a certain degree of financial well-being. And if it, and when I create that for myself, this is what I'll try to do with it. So in that trigger, there was an invitation to recognize, oh, there is a desire there. There's something that I long for there. And let's clean away all the judgment and just recognize these are the traits. These are the traits that I have believed are only available to other people and not available to me. What does it look like for me to create a healthy relationship with every single one of them, to become a disciple of these traits, to actually begin to anchor behaviors that can help me cultivate these traits? That's how we start reclaiming the golden shadow. And it will bring up some of our insecurities and feelings of inadequacy, and that we will need to work with. But that's how we work with the golden shadow. The world is your mirror. The world mirrors your light.
Oh, that's such a fantastic example. And it does require a certain amount of emotional maturity and some degree of experience to be like, just stop and notice that pattern because a lot of people are very self-aware. Like they have the theoretical knowledge. They've read the books, they know their wounds, they know their triggers, but they still feel stuck in the same loops. And so I think having a process that you described is exactly what's needed to kind of dismantle all of that and take a look at it and say, what's happening here? Let's go deeper.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the upcoming launch of my new book titled The Nomadic Soul, a seeker's guide to finding a sense of self and belonging in the modern world, which highlights a profound yet often unexplored part of your identity that holds the key to everything from answering your biggest questions to finding deeper meaning and joy in everyday life. Visit thenomadic.soulbook.com to learn more, download a free chapter, or to buy a copy.
In your experience, is there anything else that's sort of missing? What's a missing piece between awareness and integration? What else is there that we're not looking at?
Yeah. Awareness is a great starting point,
Yeah.
It's just like seeing the unseen, and that's a great starting point. And when we see the unseen, a next step will be almost automatically feeling the unfelt, which is what are the feelings that I have around this specific situation that I haven't allowed myself to feel to completion, the repressed emotions that are associated to this that I haven't allowed myself to feel to completion. What I often see is if we make that distinction between, let's say we have an emotional body, your emotional body is not going to follow your mental body
Yeah.
to a place where, let's say, I'm going to take an example. Let's say what you want to experience and to live is full joy. The experience that you're calling in is full of joy, full of intimacy. And deep down into your body, you start to realize, wow, I still equate intimacy with threat and danger.
Yeah.
Your emotional body is not going to take you into a relationship that is fully intimate if you still equate intimacy with danger, and that is still the main emotional signature that is within you. So
That's the avoidant attachment style, sounds like it. Right?
Yeah, you're gonna have to go inside and actually meet the part of you that is still scared of something that I don't know, that your future promises. So what I see a lot of people dismissing is there are things we want, and some of the things we want may expose us to fears that have not yet been metabolized and digested. And we can have all the awareness possible. If you're not willing to meet your fearful self and to learn how to, I want to say, anchor a new definition of safety, a new form of safety that doesn't require necessarily that you become completely free of all pain, but that requires that you learn how to stay even when pain is here, even when hardship is here. Then you can actually walk the path of embodiment. I'm going to take an example. This year, for example, I published a book, and the fear of humiliation has always been a big imprint for me.
Sounds like it. It's definitely a through line.
It has always been a big imprint for me.
Yes.
So I've always tried the best I could to not to expose myself to situations where I may be ridiculed or seen as a fool and all of that.
Yeah.
But even this year, by putting the book out there, I'm exposing myself to a higher degree of visibility. I'm taking literally some of my ideas and I'm putting them in a book. And as soon as they land into somebody's hands, they are no longer mine. They can do whatever they want.
So true. Yeah.
And that felt like a
feels
massive
vulnerable.
degree of exposure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what? And in this moment, my assignment, it is to learn how to be with the exposure, period. Not to get rid of it.
And how are you doing?
Because I'm not.
So far?
Sorry?
How are you doing
Well,
so far?
So far, I think I've been faring pretty good,
Okay, good.
But internally, it is that practice. It's like, can I be with the exposure? Can I be with the vulnerable exposure? Can I actually be with when the fear emerges, can I stay in my body? When I come here to be on a podcast with Celine, can I actually be here? Even though I don't know where you might want to take the conversation, right? There is a vulnerable exposure there. Can I stay in my body? Can I stay here and be connected to you? Even though, all these fears and all these voices might still be here. And I think that is the main gap between awareness and embodiment, where you basically need to create the emotional real estate. I think of it as emotional real estate.
Emotional real estate. Say more.
Your capacity to be with the fears that you projected into the future, the fears that you think, oh, if I allow myself to show up out there, I may be alienated, humiliated, I may experience attacks, I may experience loss of any kind. Your capacity to say yes to all these fears, and to be like, yeah, I may experience all of this, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's
feel the fear
okay.
And do it anyway.
It fuels your capacity to be with the desires that you actually want. It fuels your capacity to embody what you actually crave.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just imagine the amount of freedom you would have when you're in that position, and your ability to just get out of your comfort zone and just put yourself out there, and you would attract so many opportunities. Of course, you're going to fail, but you'd be okay with failing. Because you have made peace with that fear. Like, I could mess up. People could think I'm stupid. People could think, all sorts of things about me. But you know what? I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
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 I mean, that is ultimate
that's what
freedom.
Self-liberation is.
Self-liberation? Yes.
Yes, that's what self-liberation is.
For
it's like,
sure.
Oh, I can afford fear.
Yeah.
And that's what the saboteur, self-sabotage, for example, or all these different things. It's like, can you afford fear? Can you afford ridicule? And if you say no, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
If the answer inside is no, it's like a part of you is going to protect you. That's how the system is wired. When your intuition says, go ahead and do this thing, there's a part of you that tracks for safety. And that part of you is going to ask, well, can you afford the possibility of looking like a fool? Can you afford the possibility of not knowing, not knowing where you're going? Can you afford, being with the uncertainty? Can you afford, feeling like an alien for several months? Can you afford all of this? And if you're not able to say yes, meaning you cannot afford the emotional experiences, this is why I call it financial real estate. Emotional real estate.
Yes.
So if you are not able to say yes, you don't have the emotional real estate to finance your freedom or to finance your potential. But if you are able to say, oh, can I afford ridicule? Yes. Yeah. Can I afford alienation? Yes. Can I afford this? Yes. Can I be with it? Can I love myself into it? And if your answers are yes, oh, you can afford it. Okay, let's go.
Yeah. That's so key. And it sounds to me like it's a muscle that you need to build, like that emotional resilience. And that comes from exposing yourself to new places and just trying new things, getting yourself in uncomfortable situations, as you did with releasing the book. Because the more you do it, the better you get at it. Like, you have to put yourself out there to get to that place. Otherwise, the boogeyman of your fears is just going to be like, no, just stay at home and, don't do anything. And it can be harder for some people who've had difficult childhoods, who've had, they were bullied as a kid, because it takes a lot to get to that place of inner strength, right?
Absolutely. And for these people, and for all of us, we've had these experiences. Putting myself out there, for example, experiencing humiliation, going out there has required that I allowed myself to face the feelings of humiliation that I felt as a high schooler that I didn't know how to deal with. So microdosing, painful, microdosing pain, honestly, especially the pain that we didn't know how to
at the gym,
with.
right? When you're doing weights.
Absolutely.
Yeah, similar to that.
The pain that is still in our body, that's our first assignment. That's our first assignment. It's almost like your higher self is telling you, hey, okay, you want to go there and you want to do that. But it will expose you to a version of pain that is still in your body that you haven't allowed yourself to metabolize and digest yet. And it will bring that up and ask of you, can you work through this?
Yeah.
Can you work through this so that you reclaim capacity and so that you are able to go out there and to do the thing that you are really fired up about? So the system when I look at the system, I can't help but see the beauty of how it is designed. How your shadow self and your higher self are constantly working together to support you. How your pain is constantly working to help you reclaim and summon the courage and the wisdom that is already here. Because the pain itself is not what turns into power, and the wound itself is not necessarily what turns into wisdom, but the wound is the portal that helps you summon the wisdom, summon the power, summon the the power that was already within you in order to move through it. So I see it as a portal, and I just find it fascinating. I think human beings are fascinating.
Yes, they absolutely are. I mean, if you think about it, the whole inner mechanics, it's all like interconnected. Everything is just orchestrates itself in such a beautiful way. And the key is to really get in touch with that, as you say, and really stay with it. That's all we need to do. And that can be a challenge in our world where we're so busy and stimulated, and it's getting harder and harder, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's why we need guides like you. That's for sure. Okay, so one last question before I let you go, Xavier. So for someone who is interested in doing all the shadow work, and who wants to get in touch with their golden shadow and unearth their gifts, what are some gentle entry points that can get them started on that journey?
I mean, for somebody who is interested in doing that kind of work, I would say, I mean, awareness is the first step.
Yeah, awareness. Yeah.
Awareness is always the first step. Seeing the unseen is always the first step in my experience. And I would start with like going with prompts such as the parts of me that I know I need to see in order to access my gifts are. The fears that I know I need to face in order to access my gifts are. And what scares me most about facing these fears is, and you just like begin to write down and begin to spontaneously answer these prompts and see what emerges. My first encounter with these fears was, and really lean in there, and what comes up within me when I even recall these experiences is the kind of love that the part of me that was scared back then needed, that wasn't available is, and also what would it look like for me to give to myself the kind of love and support that I needed back then that I didn't necessarily have? What does that look like? To meet myself there, to stay open, as I meet that part of me, as I meet that edge. The parts of me that I like to hide most are, what are these aspects? And my relationship with these aspects of me, what is that? Is it a loving relationship? Is it an avoidant relationship? Do I want to get rid of them? Perform some form of like psychological amputation of these aspects of me? But deep down, I know I cannot really get rid of them. What would it look like for me to create a better relationship with them? These are the first starting points, because integration is about reconciling with something that you internalized it wasn't safe to reconcile with. You internalize that if I connect with these aspects of me, and that includes your light, therefore I risk being seen as unlovable, especially by somebody I care about most. It's like, can we undo these scripts? Can you become your own safe place? Can you become the safe place for the parts of you that you were conditioned to see as unlovable? That's the key question. Can you have a secure relationship with your shadow? Can you also have a secure relationship with your light? So that's the first invitation that I would have for most people.
Wow.
And I would also invite people to be like, Pay close attention to your triggers. I have a one of the first tools that I created, and that is always relevant. It's called the Trigger Workbook, and that is a free tool that I give for free on my website. But
Yeah.
the trigger, it's like every
I will
trigger is
include
your
the link
shadow.
in the show notes.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Yeah.
every trigger is your shadow saying like, "Hello, I need some attention here."
Mm.
I say work with the triggers. Learn how to love yourself, when they emerge, and also learn how to meet the reactivity so that the next time you can respond really. So yeah, every single trigger, it's like, how can you begin to relate to them from now
Mm.
instead of like relating to them from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago. So yeah, that's where I would start.
Xavier, thank you for that. And thank you for being our guide down this potentially scary place that a lot of people are, they're not comfortable with going down that rabbit hole. And you are making it so easy for us. And I have to say, I really, really enjoyed our conversation. It's actually brought up some things within my own head about my own life. And I'm sure that's the case for the people who are listening and watching. Your work reminds us that healing isn't just about becoming new, becoming someone new. It's about becoming who we've always been and unraveling all the gifts that are within us. So thank you for that.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Celine. Thank you for having me on your show, and your guests are really lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And
You're
of
welcome.
course, my dear listeners, if you're inspired to get in touch with both the light and the shadow within you, please be sure to pick up a copy of Xavier's book titled Scars of Gold at his website, xavierdagba.com. You'll also find information about his workshops, his events, and his coaching services there. All right, Xavier, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.